What's good? What's good? Hello, hello, hello. It's your friendly atmospheres. It's Jonah, and I'm gonna read a lot of this book because I have nothing to do. I could be going to Beverly Hills or and watching people's cars. Like, yeah, that's a cool car. That's a cool car. Oh, you got some money? Let me get it by 1,000. I might get it, but it's a journey over there. It's like 4 hours there and back on a bus. I get off like 3, 4 times. Come back, get off like 3, 4 times, and here I am, which is fun. It's Sunday. I just don't feel like doing all that right now. I'd rather be over here looking at the woods. Because I like ghosts. You know what I mean? I like ghosts. So. And by the time we get over there, I actually have 5 or 6 cars. You know what I'm saying? Then people can look at my 5 or 6 cars and contemplate, like, yo, should I go look at these people's cars? They don't know, or keep doing what I'm doing so I can have 5 or 6 cars. Anyway, the book I'm reading is copyrighted 1927 by the Funk and Wagnos Company. And this is the copyright under the Articles of Copyright Convention of the Pan American Republics and the United States. It's either August 31, 11, or 21. I can't really see. The first number is like looks like a 1, but it could be a 0, a 3, a 2. You know, it's one of those things. 1910, and it's called The World's 100 Best Short Stories in 10 volumes. I only got volume 1, and I found these books outside one day when I was on Skid Row, but off Skid Row, you know what I'm saying? And it was left out by the library, a big ass bag. So I gave some of those away, and I was gonna give the rest of these away, but I'm about to read them first, and then probably just take them downstairs to the library down there. You know what I'm saying? And then just pick up more books and keep reading, like I'm on Audible or something. Which is a good idea. I'll figure it out sooner or later. Grant Offerton, editor-in-chief, and this is the ghost version. And Frank Wagner's company is in New York and London. I never heard of either, so I'm gonna start with the contents. The Red Room, H.G. Wells. I lived in the Red Room one time. It was pretty cool. There's a lot of weird stuff going down in the Red Room. I'll keep that one for later. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. Oh, the Red Room is H.G. Wells. I don't know if I said that already. The Two Drovers. Instead of two lovers, it's two drovers. I don't know what a drover is, so maybe it's like a driver with the O. I don't know. Sir Walter Scott. Carrie as Seen in Heaven. Carrie as Seen in Heaven. Johann Borer. Or is it Borger? I don't know. The Man Without a Country. Oh, that's a good place. You ain't got no birth certificate or no IDs or nothing. You're a man without a country. No social security card. You can't get anything for days or months, possibly years. It's a good place to be. Because you can just like, hey, I don't even have a country right now. What are you talking about? Everett Hale. They're probably going to end up at that one, but let's keep going. A Source of Irritation. Stacy Amner. Mateo Falcone. Prosper Merhimi. The Queer Scare. That's good. I might start with that one. The Queer Scare. What's going on right now? It's Pride Month too, so that's probably the best one. It sounds like the common scare, the Red Scare by who's that? The Red Scare is shit. The fuck is his name? I can see Pastor something or another. I can see his name, Friedman, Benjamin Friedman. Is that the one that did it? The Red Scare? I can't remember. The Red Scare. Anyway, there used to be a website that used to be on the internet. I think if you go to the Wayback Machine, it still might be like the uh, the information was still there. It's called the French Witness or something like that. I am the Witness or something like that. .com. They had all kinds of Red Scare shit. I was like, oh, this is dying. And I went to the library and like, yeah, this is cool. Let's get these books. So I picked up the Pale Horse book and I kept that one from the library. I never gave it back. I never gave it to my dad. Happy Father's Day. The Queen of Spades, Alexander Sergov Pushkin. That's cool. I don't read that one too. Quality by John Galsworthy or Galsworthy. I don't know who that one is. I can assure you, I do not know who it is. The beginning is the 100's best short stories, and I'm also watching Sonic on YouTube. I got to charge my phone. Did I charge it? Hold on, let me charge my phone real quick. I forgot. My battery goes. You're now interrupting the flow of the machine. You're now interrupting the flow of the machine. Okay. I got my. Yeah. Sorry, I had to get my coffee. My brew. I really want to brew, but I don't know where to put my change at for my brew. My brew. So I got brew. I got fake brew right now. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna give me all kinds of diarrhea and constipation at the same time because it's fucking coffee. That's what it does. It's a diuretic, so it's gonna give me diarrhea and the Hershey squirts at the same time, and the constipation. I'm gonna be constipated, have diarrhea, and my phone just went off. Mail motherfucker. Instead of the AOL, I tried to change my AOL voice to that, but I can't figure it out. So I just changed my entire phone. Mail motherfucker. From Euro Trip movie back in 2000. Whatever year it was. Okay, I was about to read this book right here, but I'm gonna keep reading it with me. But anyway, Seventh Sign Deliver Us. That's all I'm gonna say about it. I don't know why I wrote that in there, but hey, let's fly. I can assure you, said I, that it will take a very tangible ghost to frighten me. And I stood up before the fire with my glass in my hand. It is your own choosing, said the man with the withered arm, and glanced at me and askance. 28 years, said I have lived, and never a ghost have I seen as yet. The old woman sat staring hard into the fire, her pale eyes wide open. She broke in, and 28 years you have lived, and never seen the likes of this house, I reckon. There's a many things to see when one's still but 8 and 20. She swayed her head from side to side like a tree outside my window in my glance. A many things to see and sorrow for. I suspected these old people were trying to enhance the spectral terrors of this house by this droning insistence. I put down my empty glass on the table and looking about the room caught a glimpse of myself, abbreviated and broadened to an impossible sturdiness in the queer old mirror beside the china cupboard. Well, I said, if I see anything tonight, I shall be so much the wiser, for I come to the business with an open mind. Shout out to all the artists on the floor right now, doing what they do. It's your own choosing, said the man with the withered arm once more. I heard the faint sound of a stick and shambling step on the flags in the passage outside. The door creaked on its hinges. Oh shit! Sorry, I couldn't keep that with it. It's still gonna be on the. It's gonna be on the. It's gonna be on the track too. So on the vid. Oh shit! I can't keep that. Oh shit! Hold up. Oh shoot! Oh shit! I couldn't keep that one in. God, I gotta start over, but. I heard the faint sound of a stick and the shambling step on the flags in the passage outside. The door creaked on its hinges as the second old man entered, more bent, by drunk, more wrinkled, more aged even than the first. He supported himself by the help of a crutch, the honest crutch. His eyes were covered by the shade, and his lower lip, half averted, hung pale and pink from his decaying yellow teeth. He made straight for an armchair on the opposite side of the table, sat down clumsily, and began to cough. The man with the withered hand gave the newcomer a short glance of positive dislike. The old woman took no notice of his arrival, but remained with her eyes fixed steadily on the fire. I said, "It's your own choosing," said the man with the withered hand, when the coughing had ceased for a while. "It is my own choosing," I answered. The man with the shade became aware of my presence for the first time and threw his head back for a moment and sidewise to see me. I caught a momentary glimpse of his eyes, small and bright and inflamed. Then he began to cough and splutter again. "Why don't you drink?" said the man with the withered hand, pushing the beer toward him. The man with the shade poured out a glassful with a shaking hand that splashed half as much again on the deal table. A monstrous shadow of him crouched upon the wall and mocked his action as he poured and drank. I must confess, I had scarcely expected these grotesque custodians. 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 Ah, let me clean your house, baby. Hey, let me clean your house, baby. There is, to my mind, something. So a guy walked in the bar. From afar, it smelled like he farted or played the guitar. All of a sudden, he dropped out his spaghetti pans and the sauce and started throwing it everywhere. The bartender was like, "Man, you gotta get the fuck out of here." The bouncer picked him up and he turned around. The guy, the spaghetti, turned around, gave the bartender's bouncer a crown. And outside was a rumbling applause when the bartender asked him, "Why are they giving you an applause?" He said, "Bears don't have paws." I had scarcely expected these grotesque custodians. There is, to my mind, something inhuman in sentinelity, something crouching and atavistic. The human qualities seem to drop from old people insensibly day by day. The three of them made me feel uncomfortable. Oh, shoot. Day by day, the three of them made me feel uncomfortable with their gaunt silences, their bent carriage, their evident unfriendliness to me and to one another. And that night, perhaps, I was in the mood for uncomfortable impressions. I was going to say impersonations, but impressions. What's the word that H.G. Wells used in 1910? I resolved to get things away from the vague foreshadowings of the evil things upstairs. If, said I, you will show me to this haunted room of yours, I will make myself comfortable here. I will make myself comfortable there. The old man with the cough jerked his head back so suddenly that it startled me, and shot another glance of his red eyes at me from out the darkness under the shade, but no one answered me. I waited 1 minute, glancing from one to the other. The old woman stared like a dead body glaring into the fire of the lackluster eyes, with eyes that lackluster. No human quality at all in her eyes. The soul left out of her beady-ass eyes. If I said a little louder, "If you will show me to this haunted room of yours, I will relieve you from the task of entertaining me. There's a candle on the slab outside the door, said the man with the withered hand, looking at my feet as he addressed me. But if you go to the Red Room tonight, this night of all nights, said the old woman, softly, you go alone. Very well, motherfucker, I answered shortly. And which way do I go, you trucker? You go along the passage for a bit, said he, nodding his head on the shoulder at the door, until you come to a spiral staircase, and on the second landing is a door covered with green baize. Go through that, and down the long corridor to the end, and the Red Room is your left up the steps. Have I got that right? I said, and repeated his directions. He corrected me in one particular. And you are really going, said the man with the shade, looking at me again for the third time with that queer, unnatural tilting of the face. This night of all nights, whispered the old woman, it is what I came for, I said, and moved toward the door. Shout out to Buzz Lightyear. I gotta pause it. That took me out. That took me out. Ooh, 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 ooh. Fuck it up. Shout out to Kiki Palmer. It is what it is. Refiners. Let's see what I say. Was I? I forgot. Anyway, let's start. Good night, I said, setting the door open. It's your own choosing, said the man with the wilted arm. I left the door wide open until the candle was well alit. Not lit, but alit. And then I shut them in and walked down the chilly, echoing passage. I must confess that the oddness of these three old pensioners, in whose charge her ladyship had left the castle, and the deep-toned, old-fashioned furniture of the housekeeper's room, in which they foregathered, had affected me curiously in spite of my effort to keep myself at a matter-of-fact phase. They seemed to belong to another age. It sounds like a skyline. An older age. An age when things spiritual were indeed to be feared. Give me a rice tuner. Give me a rice burner, dog. When common sense was uncommon. An age when omens and witches were incredible, and ghosts beyond denying their very existence. Let's spend like $1,000 on gas tomorrow, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna get 10 rice burners and 14 rice bikes. Electric. I is spectrum. The cut of the clothing. The cut of the clothing, fashions born in dead brains. Are you watching people's Instagram shit too much, man? I like music, so I can help it. Listen to their little videos and shit like, yeah, that's a good song. Then they go to Delight one. They go to the Delight world, so they show their very existence is delightful. Thought I is spectral, in the cut of their clothing, fashions born in dead brains. The ornaments. Volleyball, dog, volleyball. And convenience in the room about them even are ghostly. The thoughts of vanished men which still haunt rather than participate in the world of day to day. And the passage I was in, long and shadowy, with film of moisture glistening on the wall, was as gaunt and cold as a thing that is dead and rigid. But with an effort I send such thoughts to the right about. The long drafty subterranean passage was chilly and dusty, and my candle flared and made the shadows cower and quiver. The echoes ran up and down the spiral staircases, and a shadow came sweeping up after me, and another fled before me into the darkness overhead. I came to the wide landing and stopped there for a moment, listening to a rustling that I fancied I heard creeping behind me. And then, satisfied of the absolute silence, pushed open the unwilling bias covered door and stood in the silent corridor. The effect was scarcely what I expected, for the moonlight coming in by the great window on the grand staircase picked out everything in vivid black shadow, a reticulated silvery illumination. Everything seemed in its proper position. The house might have been deserted on the yesterday instead of 12 months ago. There were candles in the sockets of the sconces, and whatever dust had gathered on the carpets or upon the polished flooring was distributed so evenly as to be invisible in my candlelight. A waiting stillness was over everything. I was about to advance and stopped abruptly. A bronze group stood upon the landing, hidden from me by a corner of the wall, but its shadow fell with marvelous distinctness upon the white paneling and gave me the impression of someone crouching to waylay me. The thing jumped upon my attention suddenly. I stood rigid for a half moment, perhaps. Then, with my hand in the pocket that held the missing money or the weapon, a fraught, shout, and doubt poured in my ears like a weapon. The revolver! Advanced only to discover a Ganymede and eagle glistening in the moonlight. That instant, for a time, restored my nerve, and the dim porcelain Chinaman on a bowl table, whose head rocked as I passed, scarcely startled me. The door of the Red Room and the steps up to it were in a shadowy corner. I moved my candle from side to side in order to see clearly the nature of the recess in which I stood before opening the door. Here it was, thought I, that my predecessor was found, and the memory of the story gave me a sudden twinge of oppression. I glanced over my shoulder at the black Ganymede in the moonlight and opened the door of the Red Room rather hastily, with my face half turned to the pallid silence of the corridor. I entered, closed the door behind me, at once turned the key I found in the lock within, and stood with the candle held aloft, surveying the scene of my visual, the great red room of the Rain Castle, in which the young Duke had died, or rather in which he had begun his dying, for he had opened the door and fallen headlong down the steps I had just ascended. That had been the end of his visual, of his gallant attempt to conquer the ghostly tradition of this place, and never, I thought, had apocalypse better served the ends of superstition. There were other and older stories that clung to the room, back to the half-incredible beginning of it all, the long tale of the timid wife, and the tragic end that came to her husband's jest of frightening her. Like, boo, bitch, boo! He fell down the steps and died. Tragically, I survived to tell the story of looking around that huge shadowy room with its black window bays, its recesses and alcoves, its dusty brown red hangings, and dark gigantic furniture, and could well understand the legends of the sprouted in its black corners, its germinating darknesses. My candle was a little tongue of light in the vastness of the chamber. Its rays fell to pierce to the opposite end of the room and left an ocean of dull red mystery and suggestion, sentinel shadows of watching darkness beyond its island of light, and the stillness of desolation brooded over it. I must confess, some impalpable quality of that ancient room disturbed me. I tried to fight the feeling down. I resolved to make a systematic examination of the place, and so, by leaving nothing to the imagination, dispel the fanciful suggestions of the obscurity before they obtained a hold upon me. After satisfying myself with the fastening of the door, I began to walk round the room, peering round each article of furniture, tucking up the valances of the bed, and opening its curtains wide. In one place there was a distinct echo of my footstep. The noises I made seemed so little that they enhanced rather than broke the silence of the place. I pulled up the blinds and examined the fastenings of the several windows, attracted by the fall of a particle of dust. I leaned forward and looked up the blackness of the wide chimney. Why did I look at this particle of dust like it's the only thing in the universe? Because I was high. I leaned forward and looked up the blackness of the wide chimney. Then, trying to preserve my scientific attitude of mind, I walked around and began tapping the oak paneling for any secret opening. But I desisted before reaching the alcove. I saw my face in the mirror. I did. White, coarse. There were two big mirrors in the room, each with a pair of sconces bearing candles. And on a mantel shelf, too, were candles in china candlestick. All these I lit after one after one. The fire was laid, an unexpected consideration from the old housekeeper. I knew there was a ghost keeper around, like an animal looking for a date. This ghost keeper kept the ghost at bay, and I lit it to keep down any disposition to shiver, and wet it up, burning. Well, I stood around with my promethazine back to it and regarded that room again. Cocaine in my veins. How else do you think this book was written? With words? No way. I had pulled. This old ass book is falling apart when I turn the page. Up a chintz covered armchair and a table to form a kind of barricade before me. On this lay my revolver ready to hand. My precise examination had done me a little good, but I still found the remote darkness of the place and its still perfect stillness too stimulating for the imagination. The echoing of the stir and the crackling of the fire was no sort of comfort to me. The shadow in the alcove at the end of the room began to display that undefinable quality of a presence, that odd suggestion of a lurking living thing that comes so easily in silence and solitude. And to reassure myself, I walked with the candle into it and satisfied myself I was jacking off by the candlelight, that there was nothing tangible there. I didn't come either. I stood that candle upon the floor, and this ghost girl came in and sucked me off. I spurred in her face of the alcove and left in it that position. By this time, I was in a state of considerable nervous tension, although, to my reason, there was no adequate cause for my condition. My mind, however, was perfectly clear. I postulated quite unreservedly that nothing supernatural could happen, and to pass the time I began stringing some rhymes together in ghostly fashion concerning the original legend of the place. A few I spoke aloud, but the echoes were not pleasant, and for the same reason, I also abandoned after a time a conversation with myself upon the impossibility of ghost and haunting. My mind reverted to the three old and distorted people downstairs. I tried to keep it up upon that topic. The somber reds and grays of the room troubled me, even with its 7 candles to the place where Mary dim. The lights in the alcove, crap stand mentally retarded place, flaring in a draft, and the fire flickering kept the shadows and penumbra perpetually shifting and stirring, in a noisily, flightly dance, casting about for remedy. How's that word you fit there? They're throwing extra words in for no reason. I recalled the wax candles I had seen in the corridor, and with a slight effort, carrying a candle. Well, I guess if you're in a candle, like you ain't really got nothing but words in your mouth. Like, yo, let me wrap this real quick. Carrying a candle and leaving the door open, I walked out into the moonlight and presently returned with a many return with as many as 10. Manny Light as Wave Bands 10. I need to go to a cookout and have a barbecue by a beach, a pool, outside of winter, at a full moon or a new moon. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? I'm just writing. I'm just reading a book and I'm just rapping in between because I get this book is flighty. You know what I mean? About ghosts. So the ghosts are fighting around, and the dude's trying to figure it out. Like, where are these ghosts at? I don't see none of these ghosts. These magic tricks. He's trying to figure out if it's a prank or not. These I put in the various knickknacks of China, with which the room was sparsely adorned and lit, and placed them where the shadows had lain deepest, some on the floor, some in the window recesses, arranging and rearranging them until at last my 17 candles were so placed that not an inch of the room but had the direct light of at least one of them. It occurred to me that when the ghost came, I could not warn him, that I could warn him not to trip over them. The room was now quite brightly illuminated. There was something very cheering and reassuring in these little silent streaming flames, and to notice their steady diminution of length offered me an occupation and gave me a reassuring sense of the passage of time. Even with that, however, the brooding expectation of the vigil weighed heavily enough upon me. I stood watching the minute the minute hand of my watch creep towards midnight. Then something happened in the alcove. I did not see the candle go out. I simply turned and saw that the darkness was there, as one might start and see the unexpected presence of a stranger. The black shadow had sprung back to its place. By Jove, said I aloud, recovering from my surprise. That draft's a strong one, and taking the matchbook from the table, I walked across the room in a leisurely manner to relight the corner again. My first match would not strike, and I succeeded with the second. Something seemed to blink on the wall before me. I turned my head involuntarily and saw that the two candles on the little table by the fireplace were extinguished. I rose at once to my feet. Odd, I said. Did I do that myself in a flash of absent-mindedness? I walked back, relit one, and I did so. I saw the candle in the right sconce of one of the mirrors wink and go right out. And almost immediately the comparison followed it. Its companion followed it. Yeah. The flames vanished as if the wick had been suddenly nipped between a finger and a thumb, leaving the wick neither glowing nor smoking, but black. While I stood gaping, the candle at the foot of the bed went out, and the shadow seemed to take another step towards me. "This won't do," I said, and first one and then another candle, and then the mantel shelf followed. "What's up?" I cried out with a queer high note getting into my voice somehow. At that, the candle on the corner of the wardrobe went out, and the one I had relit in the alcove followed. "Steady on," I said. "Those candles are wanted," speaking with a half hysterical fractiousness and scratching away at my match the while. For the mantle candlesticks, my hands trembled so much that twice I missed the rough paper of the matchbook. As the mantle emerged from the darkness again, two candles in the remoter of the room were eclipsed. But with the same match, I also relit the larger mirror candles and those on the floor near the doorway, so that for the moment I seemed to gain the extinctions. But those then, in a noiseless volley, there vanished four lights at once in different corners of the room, and I struck another match in quivering haste and stood hesitating whether to take it on. As I stood undecided, an invisible hand seemed to sweep out two candles on the table. With a cry of terror, I dashed at the alcove and then the corner and then into the window, relighting the three as two more vanished by the fireplace. And then, perceiving a better way, I dropped a hit record and I mashed it on the floor, on the iron board D-box in the corner, and caught up in a bedroom candlestick. With this, I avoided the daily of striking matches, but all for the steady procession of the humanity and extinction went on. The shadows I feared and fought against returned and crept inside of me. I yelled and shit on his floor. First, a step gained on the side of me, and then on that, I was in the black swan. I was now almost frantic with the hurrah of a hooray in a horror film of the coming darkness, and my self-possession deserted me. I leaped toward, panting from the candle to the candle in a vain struggle against the remorseless advance, so I became a flame and flipped and flapped to another candle. I was afraid, and I had no remorse for the other candle that got burned out. I bruised myself in the thigh against the table. I sent chair headlong. I stumbled and fell in the whisking away to the cloth of the table. I fell in my fall. My candle rolled away from me, and I snitched another bitch, and I rose abruptly, and then they were blown out as I swung off the table from the candle and rinsing up my nasty but there was another slight light still in the room. It was a red light, and it wasn't green, so that means stop. I had to do what I had to do, though. I had to get the police off of me. That streamed across the ceiling and staved off the shadows from me. The fire. I yelled the fire, but nobody was there. It was just me and the ghost. That wasn't there either. Of course, I could still thrust my candle between my bars and relight it. I turned to where the flames were still dancing between the glowing coals of a Spanish lady, naked, glancing, prancing, drinking tequila probably, and splashing red reflections upon the furniture. Made 2 steps toward the gate, the grate, and the incontinently incontinently. The flames dwindled and vanished. The glow vanished, and reflections rushed together and disappeared. And as I thrust against the candle between the bars, darkness closed upon me like a shattering of an eye. Wow, isn't that a code for I I can't see? Wrapped around me in stifling embrace, sealed my vision and crushed the last vestiges of self-possession from my brain. And it was not only palpable darkness, but intolerable terror. The candle fell from my hands. I flung out my arms in vain effort to thrust that ponderous blackness away from me. Lifting up my voice, I screamed all night with all my might. Once, twice, even thrice. Then I think I must have staggered to my feet. I thought I suddenly of the moonlight lit corridor. I thought about that, and I ran with my head bowed, my arms over my face, stumbling, ran for the door. But I forgotten the exact position of the door. I had stuck myself heavily against the corner of the bed. I staggered back, turned, and was either struck myself against some other bulky furnishing. I have a vague memory of battering myself thus to and fro, in the darkness of a heavy blow. At last, upon my forehead, of a horrible sensation of falling that lasted an age, of my last frantic effort to keep my footing, and then I remember no more. I opened my eyes in the daylight. My head was roughly bandaged, and the man with the withered hand was watching my face. I looked about me, trying to remember what had happened, and for a space I could not recollect. I rolled my eyes into the corner and saw the old woman, no longer abstracted, no longer terrible, pouring out some drops of medicine from a little blue pail into a glass, and from a vial to the glass. It was tequila, I told you. Where am I? I said, I seem to remember you, and yet I can't remember who you are. They told me then. I heard of the haunted Red Room as one who hears a tale. We found you at the dawn, said he, and there was blood upon your face and your forehead and your lips. I wondered that I had ever disliked him. The three of them in the daylight seemed commonplace old folk enough. Then the old man with the green shade in his hand on his head bent down with who he sleeps. It was very slowly I recovered the memory of my experience. You believe now, said the old man with the withered hand, that the room is haunted? He spoke no longer as one who greets an intruder, but as one who consoles a friend, condoles with an old friend. Yeah, I remember. The room is haunted, and you have seen it, and we who have been here all our lives have never set eyes upon it, because we have never dared. Tell us, is it truly the old Earl who? No, said I, it's not. I told you so, said the old lady with the glass in her hand. It is a poor young countess who is frightened. It is not, I said. There is neither ghost of Earl nor ghost of Countess in that room. There is no ghost there at all, but worse, far worse, something impalpable. Well, tell me, they said. The worst of things, all things that haunt poor mortal men, said I, and there is in their nakedness fear that will not have light nor sound, that will not bear with reason, the deafness of the darkness, and overwhelms. It followed me through the corridor. It fought against me in the room. I stopped abruptly. There was an interval of silence. My hand went up to my bandages. The candles went out one after one. I fled. Then the man with the shade lifted his face sideways to see me and spoke. That is it, said he. I knew that was it, a power of darkness, to put such a curse on a home. It lurks there always. You can never feel it, even in the daytime, even of a bright summer's day. In the hangings of the curtains, keeping behind you, however, your face about it. In the dusk it creeps in the corridor and follows you so that you dare not turn. It is even as you say, fear itself in that room. Black fear. And there it will be, so long as this house of sin endures.